Hello, and welcome today to our Wintax detailed training for the 2023 tax year. We are excited to share this information. It is just as it is explained. It's a detailed training. So this training could last definitely an hour, maybe longer, depending on questions and depending on the detail that is shared. So be prepared. If you're a longtime client, there might be some repetition for sure. But everywhere we've gone, when we've done these even brief trainings, there's been plenty of our longtime clients that have said that they have learned something new. So I expect that you will today as well. I don't know if most of you have heard, maybe everyone, but we have been informed by the IRS that e-file will begin on January 29th. So as most of you are familiar, that means that there's a controlled launch, usually a week and a half prior to. We are communicating with the IRS on that information at this time, and there will be an email sent to you on Monday, January 15th with those details. So please do make sure in your email inbox that anything that says at Taxware Systems is a safe sender. Make sure that those emails that come from us, which are not a huge amount, but that they are able to get through to your priority inbox. That is critical for you for being our client throughout the year, throughout the season. So that's exciting news. Again, that controlled launch information, formerly known as hub testing, will be shared on Monday, January 15th in an email. This training will be recorded and will be available on our tutorial videos webpage. It will also be sent in a link from Zoom. Zoom has a follow-up email that is sent, and the link to the actual recording will be there as well. Let's see here. If you don't know, there's a Q&A at the bottom. That allows you to send some questions, most of which we will answer on the fly as we go through chat back. Anything that we determine we should leave to the end for a live question or live answer, we will mark that as well. So if you have certain questions, you can put them there, and we will do our best. Keep it pertaining to the actual training that we're doing here at this time would be appreciated. Further questions, you know that tech support is always available to you at area code 909-931-3131 for service and support related to your program. All right. Let's see. We are ready to have Luis, our lead technician, to train us today. And so I'm going to share a little bit about him. We love Luis. His ability to connect with our clients and understand their needs is exceptional and a gift to Taxware. When he isn't providing tech solutions in both Spanish and English, Luis can be found swimming, even if it's cold outside, or watching a horror movie. Not my cup of tea, either one. He also enjoys learning new computer skills and online streaming. We are so grateful to have Luis, and we welcome him to share this training with us today. Take it over, Luis.
Thank you, Catherine. Like Catherine said, we will be going over Wintax detailed training. I will be giving you guys a lot of information, so I'll try to keep it a little bit slow and go with pace so we can kind of get everything that we're going to be using here. In case you miss something, this will be recorded so you can watch it again. We also do have videos on our website that you can take a look at. They're both in English and Spanish. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get into the program. Okay, so once you launch your Wintax program, this is what you're going to be presented with. This is our main screen. In here, there's a couple of things that we want to point out to. So the number one is on the left side. This is the message and alerts. These are very important messages. As you can see, they're kind of red, so they're kind of screaming at you to take a look at them. These are messages we get from the IRS or something crucial that we need to report to someone. To taxpayers, we will send them out here in case of software releases, the shutdowns, training webinars. Always make sure to see these. We don't put them out a lot. They're only, like I said, for important scenarios. You can go ahead and open them, but just double clicking on them, and it will give you the full message where you can see here. You can print it out if you want to see it. It has priority, quick summary, and then the full message. Once you click OK, you can see it's no longer highlighted in red, means you've read it. So for this instance here, I left them all in red. You just click them again, like I said, priority again, as for the training webinars. Same thing here. And you can see for the IRS shutdown, we have it as urgent to let people know, hey, the IRS was shutting down on this date. So anything important that we get from the IRS or we want to report out, we'll go ahead and do a message alert here. Okay. So it's very important to take a look into those. Once you see those, you can go ahead and just click that little arrow, which will move it to the side. So you have your full view. I always recommend having this open just because it makes it easier to see those messages. Okay. So once again, on the right side of the screen here, we have our basic program. These are our default buttons that we see here. Right now, we're going to start a little slow. We're going to go into the defaults and settings. We're going to go in there and explain how some of those settings works and everything for that. We also have our prepare an ERO. So once you install your program, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into your prepare an ERO setup here. Okay. So once you click that button there, you're going to be presented with this screen. This screen, you can go ahead and do your prepare setup. This is for anyone that's preparing taxes on your office. You can have multiple preparers and you can select them for each tax return. The ERO is someone that's, has their EFIN, their ERO number, they can go ahead and transmit to the IRS. This is set up with Taxware. Once you get it from the IRS, we verify everything and then we add it to your program. The information is provided in here. So you can see I have some test ones here. These are we're going to be using for our demo today. So I'm going to go ahead and you're going to see my mouse go a lot to the bottom right, the OK. The OK is how you're going to move around on the program. Think of it as kind of like a enter and a save button. Whenever you do something in Taxware, when you click OK, it saves it to the file. So for example, when you leave the return by pressing OK, it saves that full return to the file. So next time you open it up, it's there. So this is a very important button. We'll be using it a lot. You see that it does have some numbers and a little symbol next to it. I will be getting into that soon. So for this instance right here, we're just going to go into prepare setup. I have some demos here. If in case you need to add a new one, you just click on add. You'll fill out the information here, your firm name, preparer, your address, zip code, EIN, PTN number. Now there's a button here that says update tax preparer. A lot of our clients think that once you're done, you have to hit that button. You do not want to hit that button. What that button does is, for example, if I installed the program and I did a couple returns before I did a preparer, those returns do not have a preparer set up for them because there was no preparer created. So whenever I create this and I click update tax preparer, what it's going to do, it's going to go ahead and replace those empty preparers on those tax returns with the one I have here. So for example, if you have multiple preparers in your office and you click this button, all the tax returns on that are there are going to switch to this preparer. So you only want to use this when, for example, you only have one preparer and you have a lot of tax returns you did already before setting up the preparer. You want to go ahead and click that so it updates everything for you. Okay, we'll go ahead and click OK here. We'll go ahead and click OK one more time. So the transmitter information, that's only necessary when you're doing direct filing. If you're doing direct filing, you would know that you're doing direct filing. If you don't think you're doing it, you're probably not doing direct filing. For most of our clients, the prepare setup and the ERO information is all you're going to need. Once you have those two set up, you're pretty much good to go on start creating returns. But we're going to go into defaults and settings for a quick second here. Okay, so once we go into defaults and settings, you're going to see here, it's quite overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff here, but we'll go ahead and break everything down so it makes it easier for you. So the current user here on top, Win user, that's made for having multiple settings for different scenarios. What I recommend, for example, if you have an office that has multiple preparers and you share data over a network, but you also want to keep data locally, you will create one that says network, and then you would do all the paths for the network, and then you create a local one, and then you can switch back and forth without having to remap your settings and data paths over and over. So this makes it really easy to do that by creating multiple users. Okay. Second line we're going to see is your Taxware client ID. This is the client ID that you get with Taxware. It's very important that we put it in here. That's in there. It will allow your program to receive updates by when you open it up, it's going to tell you an update's ready to go. You're going to download it, and it's very important during tax season to have that there because we release multiple updates, sometimes even per day. Updates are going nonstop. We get new information. Some fixes go out. It's very important to have that there. During the off season, we don't send as much batches, but it's also important to keep that. Once you set it up, you're good to go. You don't have to go back in and change it. So the next line we're going to be seeing is the settings and data path, which is line number 3. Line number 3, settings and data, contains exactly what it says, your settings and data for your program. This contains all that you save up in there, which is your lookup information, your EROs, your print setup, your billing setup, your the tracker, everything's contained in the settings and data folder. So you want to make sure that this is always pointing to wherever you're using. Again, in this case, I'm doing local. By default, it's always going to install into C Taxware settings and data. If you have a secondary drive for some reason, because your primary is small and you have it on the D drive, you will set this to D Taxware settings and data. It always has to be in a settings and data folder. Okay, so once you have that, you now have the current year data path. The current year data path is basically a way for you to keep your taxes organized if you have multiple preparers. What it's going to allow you to do, if I click this little 3 little dots here, you can see I have different folders here. So this is a 23 data, demo use, and personal. So what you can do, for example, if you have a tax preparer named Jose and then you have one named Bob and then Jake, you can create a folder for each one. So if I were to go here, add a new folder, just type in Jake, it would create his folder. So now any returns that go into whenever I'm sending to Jake will go into his folder and they won't get mixed up into other preparers folders. Or if you want to have it separated by language, you can make one that's in English and Spanish, and then put your English clients in one and Spanish into a different one. This will stick with the demo use. And for the prior data path, it's the same. Basically, it's just looking to which folder you're looking for your last year's data. Again, by default, our program is always going to set it to 22 data and 21 data or 23 data, depending on what year it is, and then the data name next to it. It's up to you if you want to split it up. You can go ahead and add the new folder. But very important when you're doing prior year, that if you do have a split, make sure you're looking in the correct spot for the right client, because sometimes you'll be like, my client's not showing up. And most of the time, it's going to be because it's in a different folder. So those are the settings and data paths up here, these 3. The next ones are the program paths. These are a little different. They don't want the data for the program. They want the program themselves. So for line number 6, it says depreciation program path. Now, whenever you're doing a return and you have the depreciation model that comes installed with the individual package, you'll go ahead and access that depreciation with a button inside the return. I'll show you that in a bit. But it needs to know where that program is located so it can launch it. And this is where you set this. Again, for most users, this is perfectly fine. You don't have to edit any of this because Taxware, when you install it, has all these settings predefined for you, and that's where they normally go. This will be in case, again, if you're using a secondary drive or you have it somewhere else, you want to put the path to the program, not the data. Okay, DocArt is the same thing. If you're using our program for DocArt, you want to put the path where that's located. Something new this year is the partnership program data path, which is for the 568s. So this one does want the data path for the settings and data. You can see here it says data. And that's going to be simple. You're going to go, again, see Taxware, settings and data, and then the name of the program, and then wherever your data is located. So that's going to be pretty simple. And that's so I can do the 568s with integration with the individual. Okay. So that's going to cover our default and program paths for the settings and data. The next thing we're going to look at is the default and setup section. So line 9 begins that section with the preparer name. The preparer name are the ones that you set up on the first button for the preparer and ERO. You want to make sure you have this set up. Otherwise, every time you make a return, it's going to be empty and it's going to give you an error when you try to e-file it saying it's missing. So you want to make sure you come in here and set this up. So you can see I can click this little button here. It's going to show me the ones that I have. I can switch it up to self-prepare if I want to, or I'll go back into the text. Uh, if you have multiple people working on a computer, or you have multiple computers and you're on a network drive, once you add your preparers, they'll be listed here. So, for example, if this one's being self-prepare, I'll put self-prepare on this one. On the next computer I go on to, it's going to be taxes. So in that case, any return I make on the second computer will be for taxes, and any return I make on this computer will be for self-prepare. So you can do that with, for example, different names, Jake, Bob, and have them each on their own computer. The default ERO is the same. Normally, you're most likely just going to have one. If you have multiple EROs, you can go ahead and select which one you want by default to be selected. But that's pretty much the same thing as line number 10. For line number 11 and 12, we're going to go ahead and skip that for now. I'll come back to that in a bit because we're going to go ahead and dive into that a bit more deeply. Preparation date, this updates to basically whatever day you open it. For some reason, if you need to change, let's say, the tax preparation date because they want, it wants it to show the day you prepare it and it's not showing up, you can go ahead here and just edit this information and I'll go ahead and set it to that. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive into the first one, which is the billing setup. Now, the billing setup here, we use what they call snapshot billing. So this is your default billing. So everyone that you create will get this bill when you do it. So whatever rates you put here will be shown on every client by default. However, inside of a client, you can further edit it and it won't affect the defaults and settings. So for example, here, if you wanted to put, let's say, individual, you want to charge 150, you put 150, any return I make that has the 1040 would be $150. And then that's going to show up on your bill. If you wanted to change multiple things, you can by holding down control and then selecting that. And let's say that, and I want to charge 25. It's going to update everything you selected to 25. Okay. By default, we always provide the billing profile number 1. You can change the name. You can call it walk-ins. You can call it whatever. And here you can create more. So for example, if you want to have a bill profile just for family and friends that has a discounted rate for everything, you can do that. And if you create a new one, it'll create bill profile 2. You can name it here and you can see everything is zeroed out. If I wanted to switch back to the first one, my settings are still there. So that includes basically the profile. So you can change for, like I said, family and friends. If you wanted to, let's say you made a mistake and you don't like the settings you put, you want to change everything back to 0, start over, you can go ahead and click 0 rates, click OK. That's going to go ahead and set everything back to 0. You can go ahead and start there again. Okay, so there's a couple other things you can see here. Print invoice number on bill. That's basically all it's going to do. So let's go ahead and set this to 150. And then we'll go ahead and preview it. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. You can see right now there's nothing on here because this is just an invoice. I haven't worked on any forms. So that's what it's going to look like. If you had a prior year set up, 2022, and you want to bring the billings over, you can go ahead and click recall prior. That will go ahead and bring up your billing from last year. I don't have any billing last year, so it's not going to do anything. Okay, so you can show the amount billed for each of the forms. You can have that selected by default. We have it yes. Print credit card information page, you can put that yes. So that is it. Any adjustments you want to make, you can put them here. For like discounts, you can put your discounts, any kind of information. Thank you for choosing to do your taxes with us. You can put all this up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next section. So the next section we're going to touch up on is going to be the print setup. So print setup, we're going to go ahead and click it. These are the forms that are going to be printed whenever you do your return. This is by default. Again, it's snapshot. So anything you do here gets sent to all clients by default. You can edit each client individually, or you can have different settings as well. So for example, you can have one for client copy that includes everything: bill, title page, filing instructions, and then you can make a second settings for your office archives. because in your office archive, you don't want to have the bill or the title page. All you want is the 1040 and the information that's relevant to the tax. So you will go ahead and create a secondary settings that you can do, in which case you can put that in your office. If you wanted to select, again, multiple things using that control button, you can click multiple ones. And then when you click it, it updates everything you have selected. So here on this list, we have the form names, which shows all the forms that are in the program. And you also have the ones for the states. So if you wanted to do California, you should it switches over to California, and you'll be able to adjust each of the form you want to print. So we're going to go to federal. There's a couple of things here. Print if required means that it's only going to include that in the print if it's required, if it's being used. For example, if I have print if required and I don't have for example, 8949, you can see here it's selected. It's not going to print it because if I don't open it in the program, it's not being used. So it's just not going to print it. There is another option though. For example, if you want to always print it, even if you're not using it for whatever reason, you can go ahead and click print always. Okay, so by printing always, it's always going to print regardless if it's being used or not. If you want multiple copies, you can select here, type in 2, and it'll select 2. Again, you can always control, select multiple ones, type in number 2, and it updates them all. Okay, if you want to do all, you go control A, it selects everything, and then you can just type in 3, and then everything gets updated to that information. So for now, we're just going to set 2. Okay. If you don't want to print something at all, even if it's required, uncheck both of them, and it's not going to print. So for example, a big one would be, let's say, you don't want to print out their Schedule Cs for, even if they have a Schedule C, you would select it and it won't print out that Schedule C. So we'll go ahead and put that back on there. Okay. So another thing we're going to go back up here is the mass Social Security and account information. So if you want to master Social Securities and their bank account number, you can click this yes. Just do know that if you do click that on yes, what it's going to do, it's going to put a watermark on a saying client copy. The reason for that is the IRS does not like it when preparers send in or clients send in returns that are masked. So in order to prevent that from happening, we've added this watermark that prevents them from accidentally sending in a mass Social Security. One of the settings I always recommend our clients use is protect PDF with Social Security number. This is going to protect the PDF when you archive it. And in order for them to open it, it's going to give them a prompt saying, hey, please enter the last 4 of the taxpayer. That way you have some kind of protection, especially if you're sending them out emails. Emails it's not the most secure thing out there. So you want to make sure that you take some steps to protect your client's information. Okay. So moving on down, again, we have client watermark, client copy. This is, if you have this and you still want to show client copy, you can go ahead and mark it. This won't mask the socials anymore, but it'll place a watermark on it saying client copy. Okay, so we'll go down to line number 6, which is the letter formatter. I'm not going into too much detail on the letter formatter. There is a nice detailed video on our website. You can take a look at it. But in case you wanted to customize the letter formatter, you can do that there. You can add, change the wording of the title page or the default page, or even add your own slip sheets in there. If you, for example, if let's say you created an engagement letter and you created it in a different program, like Microsoft Word, and you want to include it in the returns, you can click on line 15, which is additional PDFs to print. So you will go ahead and add it here. You would add the PDF you created, give it a name, description, and how many copies you want to print. So this is adding extra PDFs to the print in case you want to add, more letters that are besides the slip sheets, because you can edit the slip sheets to be a engagement letter, but let's say you have other ones you want to add, that's where you would do it. Okay, the printer, pretty simple. You select your printer, whatever you have, the program will print off that printer there. Okay, so this one here, auto create PDF when print complete returned. I recommend having it because this gives you another archive besides it in case you do paper copies and you store them in their files, or you're not doing paper copies, you're just going to be doing digital. Whenever you complete the return, you print it out, it's going to create a PDF. So you can always go back. The client comes back later saying, hey, I need a copy of my return. You can go ahead and find it because you have that option enabled. Okay, so this set return status when printing complete return, this allows you to change the status of the return once you hit that complete return. Print the complete, it's going to allow you to set to complete, which will basically mark the return as complete. And complete and locked, the difference between both of them is that with complete, you can still edit the return. If it's complete and you come back, you can delete a form, you can move something, you can change numbers. With complete and locked, it makes you cannot edit the return. Once it's complete and locked, in order for you to edit the return, you have to switch the status back over to complete or information pending, and then you can edit. So I recommend either switching it to complete or complete and locked. That way you keep track of that information there. All right. So that covers our default and setup section here. We're going to go down a little bit more into the default settings. This one is really up to preferences, how you want to manage it. It's up to you what you select, but some of the recommended ones that we have are check mark now. Automatically check and download updates when you start Wintax is very crucial. You want to have that one on. I don't really see a reason why people will turn it off. But what this does is every time you start Wintax, it's going to check our server to see if there's an update. And if there's an update, it's going to tell you, hey, an update is available. Do you want to download it now? You click yes, it updates, and you're good to go. Input method is, we're going to be going over this pretty soon. Once we start doing an actual return, we'll go ahead and cover both line input and forms and schedules. So for now, I'm going to leave it blank so you can see what happens if you don't select something in there. So you have other options here. I will briefly go over. Choose 1040 ASR if allowed. You can have that there. So default language set preference to Spanish. In case you want to do that, you can select that there. I'll send it out. So print daytime phone number on 1040. Again, up to the client. Some people have a yes. Preparer name on signature line. That's usually checked off. People want to see the preparer name on that signature line. Okay, enter zip code before city and state. Use prior year client number when we're calling clients. That's something that a lot of people use. For example, let's say you have 100 clients and they all have their own assigned, 1, 2, 3 number. When you recall them over, it's going to tell you if you want to assign it the next available number. So by doing that, if, for example, let's say Jose was number 1 last year, and now Jessica came in this year, and she's number 1. Whenever I try to recall it, it's going to say that number 1's being used, so it's going to assign number 2 to Jose. But let's say Jessica also came last year, she was number 5. If I have this check, whenever I recall Jessica, she'll be number 5 again. It won't put her as number 1, even though I don't have a number 1. And when Jose comes, he'll be set to number 1 because it's calling the last number they used for last year. Okay, so there's another couple more settings here on the side over here. Some of the most important ones here is verify SSN RTN account number by keying them twice. So this is, again, up to you. Some people like to go real quick, and sometimes, we're all human. We can all make mistakes, and we might miss a number, or the client might give us a wrong number. This is basically allows you, whenever you enter the number, it's going to say, okay, enter it one more time just to verify. If it's correct, both of them, it's going to go ahead and add it to the return. Hide refund amount due on input screens. We'll go into that right now when we start doing the return. That's just hides the amount so you don't see it on the input screen. I don't really see a reason for people to use it, but in case you don't want the client to see the return until it's done, you can have that on there. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and scroll down a bit here, a little bit more. So input STI and W-2s. Again, if you're in California, that's really useful. Auto calculate is on the W-2s. Basically, it does the calculation for you. So when you put in your wages, it will calculate your Social Security, Medicare, and STI automatically based on the information we have from the IRS. Again, same thing, more verifications, our Schedule A amounts, estimate payment charge. So again, more settings that will make it easier for you, and depends on how you want to use it. So we'll go ahead and go down to other settings and cover some of it here. So preview return after archiving. I recommend always doing that. So whenever you archive the return, it's going to ask you the return has been archived. Do you want to preview it? It's going to click yes. And that's going to allow you for you just to preview it without having that asked. Okay. Use current preparer as third party designee. Most of the time, that's by preference, it's always set to yes, unless you want to assign a different third party designee. You can go ahead and take that off. But by the default, it's usually on. Okay, so let's see. In case you don't want to have that one, you can set up a default one here. So you can do that there. So for example, if you want to make sure that you're always the preparer, even though you have multiple preparers, you can do that, and that will be in for information there. Security code for Taxware. If you use our Taxware program, this is where you would enter the security code. Taxcom, same thing. It's the API for Taxcom. So these are keys that you get from the website. Both Taxcom account code and Taxcom API settings you want to keep secret. They're very important not to share because it's basically passwords to those things. So this is where you will enter those two informations. Use electronic signature without signature pad, mouse, finger, not topaz. So if you don't have a topaz pad and you want them to be able to sign and you have a touch screen, you can go ahead and set the CS and they'll be able to use that touch screen, or they can use their mouse to sign when the time comes for them to sign the return. Okay. So e-file transmission, usually, again, you're not going to edit that unless you're a direct filer. You go FA, but for everyone, most of the people, A to A is all you need to do. You won't have to edit that. Combine acts, print multiple acts per page. So if you do a lot of returns, you would have to go ahead and print each one every time there's an act. And that will use up a lot of paper. So what this does is allows you to combine all your acts into one page. It's going to give you a list of everything there, and it's going to say accepted or rejected on just that one page. If you don't want to print them, you can do preview acts instead of printing. So that will basically allow you to preview them instead of actually printing them. Okay, save PDF, same thing. Instead of printing, it's going to make a PDF of it, and you'll have that stored. So in case you need to go back to get that act, you can go ahead and see that. Something very important to know is that we are not allowed to keep acknowledgements on our servers for a long period of time. So in case you need an acknowledgement from 2021 and you don't have that and you don't have it saved, we'll have to pull the XML when you call in support, and it's not as nice looking. So it's always good to have those options there. All right, so the rest of them are pretty simple. Default, taxpayer pin, 8879. These are the pins they use there. Okay, print direct deposit information on the 8879. If you want to print the account there, go ahead and add that, and print 9325 with the 8879. So again, these are just up to you if you want to have them there. All right, let's go ahead and click OK. Okay, let's see what we're going to go into next. Okay, miscellaneous features. There's one very important thing here that we have to go over. Backups. Backups are very crucial because we do not store the data for your clients. You are responsible for your client's data. And it is very important to have backups. For example, let's say your computer breaks down, okay, and you're unable to boot into your computer and you have an external drive and you have your backup. You call in for support saying, hey, my computer broke down. I have another one, but I want to get everything set up. That can be a simple 5-minute call. We'll set you up, restore your backup so you're good to go and you continue on your journey. If you do not have a backup, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go to a local technician to see if he can recover that data. And if you can recover that data, then you'll be good. Worst case scenario, if that data is not recoverable, you would have to be inputting the clients back in manually. If you have the returns, paper returns, you would have to input that back in. So it is very important. I can't stress enough how important it is to have backups. And you want to have a correct type of backup. So let's say, for example, if you have a backup and you have it on the computer, what's going to happen if the computer breaks down or, something happens to it? Your backup is with that computer. So it's pretty much gone and there's no way to recover that backup. So you want to make sure you're backing to somewhere other than your computer, whether it's a USB, an external drive, the cloud, anywhere that is aside from your computer. If you have a server, back up to the server. Even a different computer, you can back up to that computer. You want to have backups in a different location than your data. Otherwise, the backup won't work. So in this case, you can see line one, I have it set to the Google Drive, which is the cloud solution. So whenever I make a backup, it creates a backup on the drive. Okay, so line number two allows you to view the folder. It's just you click on it and it will open up the backup folder for that. Run backup now will force a backup to run. Normally, backups will run when you open the program. It's going to say, hey, you have a backup scheduled to run. Do you want to run it now? And you'll click yes on that or click no, depending if you have a client that's waiting for you, but always back up. And that prompt is going to come up based on whatever you have on your backup schedule. So for backup schedule, if you want to add something here, we'll click add. So you can see by default, the daily, every 1 day starting basically tomorrow. Let's say for tax season, I want to do daily because again, a lot of information is changing during tax season. So you want to make sure, you get the most recent backup every single time. So you'll go ahead and do a daily backup every 1 day starting tomorrow. If I wanted to have a second backup, I could do a daily backup let's say, every 4 days. And I want this backup to include the PDFs. So now the reason you don't want to include PDFs on a daily backup is PDFs do go up in size. They do get pretty big, which will increase your backup size. So the most important thing here is your tax client's data. So by doing the daily without the PDFs, we're including all the data every day that backs up. So for example, if they come in and something happens and I messed up the data on 1 day, I can go back to that specific day and restore that client, or I can go to a different day and restore that client's data on that specific day if you're doing the daily backups. Not including the PDFs, the backups are super tiny. Even if you have a lot of clients, they don't get that big. But if you include the PDFs, they do get a little bigger, which is why I say either every 4 days or you can switch it to every week, every 1 week. And this will make it so that every week it backs up your PDFs. Okay. So if you want to copy a client to a new number, for example, let's say I have myself as number one, and last year Jose was number one. So I want to bring Jose over, but I'm still number one, so I can't because it will replace me. I can go ahead and copy myself over to, let's say, number 10, and then I'll bring him over, and then he will go ahead and be number one. When you delete clients, you always want to delete them within the program. There's other ways to delete them. We won't go into that, but always delete within the program. The reason for that is that if you delete someone from within the program, you can always click restore deleted clients, and it will show you deleted clients. So I can just double click one, and then I'll restore it, and then we're good to go. For example, if you delete a client by accident, that's something that you want to be able to recover in case that happens. Okay. So we'll go into program access. We'll go very brief over these. Won't spend as much time as I did with the backup because these are just very simple things. Program settings password. You need to set this so you can edit what's down there. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then I'm going to click unlock settings. It's going to ask for the password. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now you see everything's unlocked here. For example, if I wanted to make sure that I have multiple computers, multiple preparers, and I want to make sure that only my computer can transmit returns. I don't want anyone else transmitting returns. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and, so right now, everything is protected. We want to make sure that they can access the reports. They can, for example, we want them to do everything except transmit. Right now, they can do everything except transmit because transmit is locked. So if I don't want them to delete clients, I'll check that as a yes. If I don't want them to mask the socials, I'll check that as yes. Okay. But in this case, I just don't want them to transmit. I want to be the only one to transmit. So in order for them to transmit, they will need that password that we set up here. Otherwise, they won't be able to transmit. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the password. And then I'm just going to leave it blank for that. Okay. The program login password. This is a password that gets asked whenever you open the program. If your computer is exposed to the public, and you don't want them to open the program and see everyone's information, you would set this up. You would put required login password here. Okay. And then the next time you have it start up, it's going to do the password that you put up here. So whenever you open the program, it's going to say password is required. You're going to type the password in, and then it's going to open up the program. Keep in mind, there's no way to recover that password. So if you do forget it, we'll have to delete it completely. There's no way for us to recover it. Like forget password. So it's just you have the password or you don't. And if you have and you forget, we'll just delete the settings, and then that will allow you to go back into your program, but it'll delete all your settings. So it's very important that you do have that and you do store it. Password does reset every 90 days, again, security reasons. Okay. So again, we won't go over this here. It's just publications, lookup records, license agreement, PDF. The last four is usually what gets selected. If you want to do a generic password for all your clients, you can go ahead and do a generic password for all your clients here. All right. All right, we'll go ahead and touch up on little things here before we go into e-file. Come back into e-file status. Batch e-file, it's pretty much when you're going to send out multiple returns. We'll come back onto that in a little bit. Tax reports is all the reports that we offer in the program. So some of the things that people have asked is, why don't we bulk import clients from last year? The reason for that is that if we were to do that, we wouldn't be able to generate all these neat reports that you have here, such as clients that you've lost, new clients. So we want to make sure to be able to do that. We do each client individually, and there is a lot of reports you can do here. We won't go over too many of the reports here. You can print your labels, and there's even more reports if you go into tax-based. There's listings here that you can generate all your reports from. So there is a lot of reports you can do. If you need help generate a report, always give our tech support a call. We'll be glad to help you generate any of the reports that you need. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with a new client now. So we'll go ahead and touch these three screens up here, which are for the client management, basically. So new client creates your new client, basically. You'll click on it. It's going to ask you for an ID. It's always going to give you the next available ID based on what's available. So if right now you see it gives me 23, that's because I have a 22, 21, and everything below. So because of that, it's giving me the next one. So if I tapped in 1,000 and I created him, the next client that comes in will be 1,001, because the 1,000 is the last one that I have there. Even though I'm missing all the ones in between, 1,000 was the last one I worked in. It's going to go up the next number that's available. So we're going to cancel that for now. Recall prior. This is where you're going to see 2022's data or your prior year's data. This is our recall screen. This is our grid here. It shows the information for the clients, full name, their socials, home phone, return status, e-file status. If they have bills, let's say, for example, there's too much here and you just don't like all this information, you can always click edit grid, and then you can add stuff or you can remove stuff. For example, I don't want to know when it started. I don't want to know what their prior year was. I don't want to know their e-file status. I don't even want to know the return status. I just want to know this basic information, client ID, taxpayer, and I want their social to go first. So we're going to move that up, going to save it, and it's going to make it really compact. It's just going to be their social, client ID, basically what we had selected there. If you want to restore it back, you can always go here and restore settings there, and then you can save it. And then it's going to go back to the default settings. Okay. So that's pretty much the client grid and the prior client. If I wanted to bring someone over to this year, I would just simply double click it. It's going to ask me, hey, they have not been recalled. We have his ID 1111, so we're going to click OK. And then at this point, it's going to give the information. If there's nothing here from last year, it won't show anything. If there is something there from last year, it's going to show you a recall prior. You'll click that and it'll populate that information. So we'll click OK. Okay, so now we're in the return here itself. We designed the program to be a top to bottom flow, and it kind of follows that. And once you get the flow of the program, it's very easy to navigate. Everything goes from top to bottom. You start off filling out their information here. You put their address information. And then if you want to go back and edit their phone, the driver license that you got in the beginning screen, you can go here and edit that down here. Okay. You can see here, like I said, it goes from top to bottom. You fill the top, go down, and basically you continue until everything's filled in the bottom. It's the same thing for our navigation. The flow is the same thing. So um, earlier in the beginning, I was talking about line input and your form input, the ones that you were going to set at the default settings. These are these two, line input and form input. So the first part of the flow is going to be the basic information. You can always do their basic information, fill that all information in. And then the next step of the flow is going to be to go into the actual tax return itself, putting in your schedules and everything. There's two ways of doing that. There's the 1040 line input, which is a visual representation of the 1040. I'll go ahead and click that now. Basically, you see a 1040 on your screen. And again, you move from the top to bottom. Same thing. You start with your W2. You click on line 1. Okay. Close that down because that's from Taxcom. But we'll go ahead and see here that this is how it goes. You got your W2s, your 1099. There's multiple here that you can do. Let's see, there's that one, and then there's the railroad one there that you have. So 1099R. We'll go back here. So for example, let's say here I accidentally enter this one. I want to delete it. I will just select it, press delete on my keyboard, and you're good to go. Okay. So again, top to bottom, go through the flow, W2Gs, 1099 miscellaneous, NEC, and the K. Okay. Once you're done, you'll go ahead and click OK, which will bring you back into your line input. Okay. So that was recalling a client. I'm going to go into the actual return in a bit, but let's go ahead and go back into this 3 screens here. Okay. So that was recall prior. We can see on the recall screen that they were brought forward. So the reason I came back here is I want to show you this screen. This is a screen that I spend most of my time in. And this screen is awesome because it has everything you need. All these 3 little things here that you have, 1, 2, 3, the recall, you can find in the recall client screen. Okay. So if you want to make a new client, you can click up here, new client. Simple, you start your new client. If you want to do prior client, you can click prior and it's going to show you your clients. You can double click it, or you can select, oh, like I had it earlier. This what's going to do, it's going to show both your current clients and your past clients, but your past clients are going to be grayed out. So whenever you bring someone forward, so number 12, for example, here, again, I have it set to use the same ID as last year, so it's assigning it number 12. So once I do that and we go back out, you'll see number 12 is now lit up white because it's being worked on. Okay, so the recall screen is like best place to be at. It has all the information you need. Again, in the defaults and settings, we set up the different paths that you can have for different pairs. You can switch out from here. Okay, and again, the same thing applies to this one, like the recall prior. You have your client grid. You can edit this however you like. I want to see their socials first. Save it. Their socials go into the first spot. Okay, and for some, like I said, you can always go back, restore it, and there you go. Another thing we have here is the filters. So you saw this is one of the 3 filters that we have. So sometimes we'll have calls saying, "Hey, I don't see any clients." So let me go ahead and create that so you can see how that's going to look. So they'll see this and they'll be like, "Oh, my clients are gone. I don't see my clients. I worked on them yesterday and they're no longer there." And that's because it's set to the prior only. So because it's set to the prior only prior clients are showing. And if you don't have any prior clients, you're not going to see anything. So by switching to current, you'll go ahead and see your current clients. Most of our clients, the majority of them use current as the client type, just because if you have a lot of clients, the all can get very clustered real quick if you have a lot of clients, and sometimes the colors tend to get faded away and you won't be able to differentiate with so many clients going being very busy. So I always recommend having it in current, and whenever you're going to recall, just pull from prior. Okay, other status we have here is your e-file status. You can see here that most of my clients here are white, but some of these 3 do have colors here. The colors are representation of the status they're in. So yellow means it's pending Acknowledgement, it's a waiting acknowledgement. You've sent it out to the IRS and we're waiting to hear back when you get your acknowledgement. Green, everything's good. The IRS has accepted it and you're good to go. Red, it was rejected by the IRS, in which case you would have a reject code. Do not worry if you can't read the reject code. That's what support's here to do. Give us a call. We'll help you get that sorted out. And the white ones are basically returns I have not sent out. They're just there. So in case I wanted to see only the ones that I got rejected, I can click the rejected column here, and it's only going to show me the rejected. Same thing for awaiting acknowledgement and the accepted. So always have that all if you want to see everyone. If you have different preparers in your office, you can sort them here by whoever did this return here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we'll start a new client. We'll start the flow from beginning to end so you guys can see how that goes. So again, you can see that I do have numbers that are missing. You can see I have 9, 11, 12, 22, and 20. But because 22 is my highest number, it wants me to go to 23. So if I were to type in 1, what it's going to do is going to create the number 1. It's going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to give me all the way up to 8. It's going to skip 9 because it's created, and it's going to go to 10. It's going to skip 11 and 12 and go to 13. So it fills them in if they're missing. But for this case, we'll just leave it at 23. All right, so again, it's the flow. Once you start the client, we're filling out the basic information. So for this guy, we're going to make them single. Okay, Jake, tester. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm pressing tab to go to the next section. You can do that, or you can click with your mouse on whatever works for you. 1, 2, 3, 1, 0, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so tab again. Okay, tab and occupation. We'll call it a tech. It'll be a tech. Okay, so filing status, tax preference information. Your address is going to go here. 123 Lake Street. Tab goes to the next spot. Now, normally, if you press tab, it's going to go down to this spot. You're going to see because that's the next one on the list. So it's in this case, it's going to skip it though. It's going to go to zip code. The reason for that is because it has a cool little feature where if you type in a zip code, it's going to give you a city for that zip code. So instead of going tab and going into city and typing it in, then state, and then doing the zip code, it's going to say, oh, it's going to fill it in. When you press tab, it goes into the next useful thing, which in this case is the zip code, which fills this in here. If you do have a barcode scanner and you have a W-2 that has the barcode, you can use that and it will go ahead and scan the W-2 information and put it in for you. If you have Taxcom will pull that information for you as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click OK. And again, we're just keeping with the flow. We're clicking OK as we go along. So next thing is going to be the daytime phone number. Let's do the phone number. Okay, it's going to ask me if I want to use that for the daytime phone number. We're going to click yes. Okay, so that's just going to pop right into there. If they do have an identity protection PIN, this is where you're going to enter it on line number 10. So if they have a PIN from the IRS, you'll put that in there. Driver license information. Some states do require driver license be on the federal return. This is where you would put that in. You would select that you do have a couple options to select some kind of identification. So if you select driver license, you would just fill that information in there. Okay, same thing for the spouse. This guy is single, so it's not going to go in there. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Now, again, you can click OK here. Bottom, we're going to go ahead and would you like to enter dependent? Again, it's keeping with the flow of the basic information. It's going from top to bottom. So we're going to go ahead and click yes on this one. And we're going to call him junior tester 0101 2012. Okay. You're going to put your social security number. Okay. And it's going to ask for a relationship. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and say this is his son. Now, common mistake that happens is you enter the information and then you think you're done. And you're going to click OK. You want to make sure to always click add. Once it's down here, the dependent has been added. The reason for that is because sometimes they have more than one kid and you have to add multiple. So when you add, it frees that up and adds it, and it puts the top part again available for you to enter information. So always make sure that your dependent, whenever you add them, is listed down here. Once he's down here, it means it's been added to the program. So we're going to click OK. OK again. And now we're in basic information. All the information we just put in there has been entered. As you can see, it was working from top down. It started asking us his information, then the address, the driver license, and then the dependents. So all that information was added, like I said, the flow from top to bottom. You see here, dependent, in case, for example, you want to add a second dependent, you can click add, and you can come back in here and add them. If you went in there by accident and you click OK, what it's going to do, let's see, okay, let's go ahead and add an empty one here. So let's go ahead and add that empty one. So let's say I added a empty one and I need to remove it. Simply just click on it, press delete on your keyboard, and it's removed. If you, for some reason, did the wrong one, let's say I deleted Junior, and I need to bring him back, you can always click restore, double click on Junior, and he's been restored. Okay, so now he's back here again. Special filing categories. Again, this is any special filing categories they have. If they're dependent of another, itemizing for state. This depends on the taxpayer. So for the majority, standard deduction is fine. This is, again, more information you would be filling on the taxpayer. If he had died, spouse. So that's all information that depends on your client itself. So inside the settings, we had this come up, the third-party designee. Again, like I said, we use snapshot settings as well as billing and printing. So even though we set that to yes, each client can have their own settings changed. So for example, if I don't want them, I can just go ahead and click that, which will allow me to edit this information here. Okay, by default, it's set to yes because we use default settings. So it's bringing in the default stuff we have there. You can see here that we've assigned the default preparer. That's been added there. We can change it here by selecting the second preparer here. If I want to leave a blank preparer, I can select a blank one and nothing will show up. So we're going to go ahead and go back into taxpayer here. So another cool thing that we have is the live preview. Live preview is down here. You can see it shows down here. So there's a couple of things that you see here: mouse free, full edit, close, live preview, and control. So I'll go in over a couple of these ones. The one I want to touch on the most is mouse free. So when you're using the program, and this is your first year, the first year, it's going to be kind of new until you get to the flow. So you're going to be using your mouse a lot. I myself use my mouse and mouse free combined because it makes it easier for me. But we have some veterans that are here that only use mouse free mode because they just know, they know muscle memory and it's by heart. They know all the numbers. If you're a new client, it's a lot easier to do the mouse. And, you know, once you start building up the confidence, go ahead and start mixing in mouse free and mouse. So by activating mouse free, you click this little asterisk or you click down here. When that is selected and blinking, what it's going to do is, for example, if I wanted to change, you can see 27 there, special filing category. So if I type in 27, it's going to bring up the box for that. So it's going to allow me to set it, and I can select it by typing 00, which is that there. If I wanted to go into line number 30, I type in 30, and it's now blinking on the first name. So if I type, okay. So another thing that you see here is that you also have the OK, which you'll be clicking a lot. Like I said, this is basically your save point. Whenever you click OK, it saves that information and goes to the next part. This also has a 99 in a little slash. So if you're in mouse free and you type in 99, it's going to go to the next section of the flow. And like I said, once you get your basic information, the next section of the flow is actually the tax itself. So because we didn't select anything in defaults and settings, it's now asking us to do, hey, what is your preferred method of inputting the tax information? Do you want to use 1040, forms and schedules? Again, 1040 is a representation of the 1040, so visual 1040 on your screen. The majority of our clients use this, so we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so once we do that there, okay. So again, if we want to go into mouse free, we're going to click down here on the bottom, or you can type in the little asterisk, and we're going to go back to 99 here. We're just going to click OK, which is the next part of the flow. It's the summary. The summary is basically making sure everything you entered in the last stage is good to go. It's going to go ahead and break everything down, display summary. We'll come back to the screen in a bit. I want to go back into the input here. So like I said, there's two methods to go into mouse, to go into the tax information input. We have our line input, which we've covered, which is the visual representation of the 1040, and we have forms and schedules. Forms and schedules is basically that's what it is. It's a list of all forms and schedules within a tax return that are listed in a list by numbers. So, for example, if I wanted to remove a form, and if you got the muscle memory, you can go ahead and go down. If you don't know it, you can go ahead and just click number 88, which is clear forms. But if you do know it, you don't have to be anywhere near it. You can see that I go up to like number 69 and 22. If I type in 88, it's going to take me to clear forms because that's the number assigned to it. So by using mouse free and using forms and schedules, you can pretty much go into any form just by your keyboard. You don't even have to have a mouse. It's just pure keyboard. Okay. So that's the difference between line input. Line input is a visual representation of the 1040 itself on your screen, which you work from up to down. Forms and schedules is a list of all the forms available within the program for you to go into the tax return. So everything that's covered in the tax return will be in forms and schedules. For example, let's say you're having trouble finding a specific form. You can also use form search. Form search, again, has a list of all our forms. And as you start typing in, it's going to start mirroring stuff out. So I typed in 1, and it's starting to put everything that has a 1 on their form. So if I type in 1090, 1099, I'm sorry. So if I type in 1099, you can see it's going to list all our 1099s that are listed here because it's filtering them out. So if I type in, for example, schedule, it's going to start filtering out the schedules here. So we can see Schedule C there, Schedule A. That's how you can find the forms super easy. If you can't find it, you can always give us a call. We'll be glad to help you locate that form. But we're going to go back over again to our basic information, going back again with the flow. So like I was saying earlier, the program goes from top to bottom. You can see here the flow is the same. These two are basically the same. It's just what method you prefer. So this is the taxpayer's information, and these two are the actual tax itself. So once you get into this, you're doing the actual tax. So we're going to go into line input here. And you can see here, like I said, we're going to give them a W-2. So we're going to go ahead and add a W-2. And you can see the W-2 is lit up blue when the first time you come into it. But if I were to go out and come back into this, you can see now it's white. It's no longer blue. Basically, the blue is the wizard mode. The wizard mode allows you to input information and have the program calculate based on that input information. So for example, F5 allows you to bring up this information here, which is anytime you enter a W-2, it's going to save that information into your database. So for example, if you have a lot of people that work at Amazon, a lot of people that work in Walmart, and instead of typing that information every single time, you press F5 on your keyboard, it brings this up, you select the company, and it fills all their information in. Okay, so let's say for this one, we'll go ahead and type in, let's say he got $46,000. Okay, so once we type that in, you can see because it's blue, it's going to automatically calculate some of the stuff here. So we press tab again. It put it in the Medicare wages and the Social Security without me typing it in. It did the Medicare tax withheld, the Social Security tax withheld. It calculated based on the 46,000, based on the numbers we got from the IRS. The only thing it did not do was the federal income. And that's the reason for that is because some people, some of your clients prefer to take extra money out or less money out. They go exempt. So we don't calculate that because there's no information for us to calculate that on if they did that or not. So you can just type in something here. We'll just type in $4,000. Okay, so based on that, again, since we're in California, the SDI is automatically calculated based on all that. It puts the number here. You want to have your state here. If you don't put your state ID here, what's going to happen is, let's say you have a client that works in multiple states. If they don't have the actual abbreviation here for the state, the W-2s are going to go into all the states, and then it's going to be incorrect because not all the money was made in that state. So you have to make sure you type in CA. This is going to make it so that only California picks up this amount here. Okay, so once we press tab, you'll type in the client, the employer state ID number. You'll put that in there. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and just make an error. So if you can see there, I typed in C, but it's red. So I'm just going to leave that there. All right, so we're going to click OK. All right, so now that we have that there, we're going to click OK again. We finished with that part of the tax return here. You can see it's being updated here. Okay, so if you have multiple monitors, we have, like I said earlier on the bottom, we have the live preview. You can put this on your clients, like on maybe a second monitor, and anything you do in the tax return will be shown on this side here. So for example, let me see if I can do this one here, and then we'll bring up Taxware there. Okay, so now that you see here, this is the live preview. If I go back into the W-2 and I remove this $46,000, you're going to see on the live preview. Okay, let's take a look. It's now gone. So when I went back to the 1040, that's been removed. So if you're working on a return here, you can always have that on a separate monitor. It only works on a separate monitor because it's a lot easier for the client to see. That way he's not seeing your screen. And you can have that screen facing them and they'll be able to see the W-2 as you work on it. So for example, if I were to go into, let's say, Schedule A, okay, you can see it switched over to Schedule A. If I were to type in $5,000 there, you can see it's updating pretty much on the spot. So that allows them to have a really cool look while you're doing the return itself. So we'll go ahead and go back into full screen here. Okay, we'll get out of here. Again, in case you need to remove a form, like I said, there's always forms and schedules, which is line 88. The numbers are fixed. So if you know the number, that 88 is clear forms. Even if you're on the 1040, you can type in 88 and it's going to bring up the clear forms because the numbers are fixed for the form. So once the form has been assigned a number, you can always use that number to get into that form, even if you're not anywhere near forms and schedules or anything like that. You can also see extra things down here, which is right there, clear forms and schedules. So again, you work your way down on the flow. We're going to go ahead and go back into the W-2. We're going to add the W-2 again. So again, F5, we select there. We're going to give him back the 46,000. Okay, give him back his withheld. Leave that C there. All right, so we have our W-2 back. And in a simple return, all they had is W-2. You'd be pretty much, like I said, you're going down the list here. You go to 1. Anything else that they need to enter, you would put in here. If they had other earned income from other locations, tax exempt. So you just go down to 1040 like you'd normally be doing it. So whenever you need to go into somewhere, you can always click that specific section. So for example, if I wanted to go into Schedule 1, I can click number 10, which will take me to Schedule 1. And if I wanted to just go into Schedule C from here, I can select that and it will take me to Schedule C. So we'll go ahead and, again, do your return, enter the information from top to bottom. Once you're done at the bottom, it tells you everything here. We do see a representation of what's going on here based on their total, their AGI, their deduction, the total tax, the payments, and how much the refund is. So you can explain that to your client. And you also do see here that in case we got to go back to the basic info for some reason, you forgot something or they forgot to tell you something, you can always click basic information here, which will take you back into basic information. This button here, depreciation button, is what I was talking about, the program path. In case they have a Schedule C and they have depreciation or they have depreciation from somewhere else, Schedule F, whatever the reason is, you would access depreciation from this program by clicking this button, which will launch the depreciation program. You can see here the due diligence is telling me, hey, there's something wrong. It's basically screaming at me. So I'll go ahead and click on that there. It's going to tell me, hey, the system has determined you may be eligible for an EIC based on the amount of $85. Do you want to carry dependent data? We'll click yes. We'll go ahead and click yes. And it's going to bring up the EIC due diligence. So here, you're going to go ahead and fill this out. If you did it prior year, you can recall from prior. If it's a first year, you'll have to go ahead and fill this out. So you just go, okay, nope, put no on that one. Did you interview the taxpayer? Yes. Okay. And then no. And then yes. And then no on that one. And then yes. And then yes. And then yes. And then now we're done with the due diligence, but you can still see that they want the due diligence for junior. So we'll go ahead and click on due diligence for him. It's going to ask you some more questions. We'll say it's birth certificate. It's not dependent of another. We brought this over and we want yes and yes. All right, so now it's no more red here. Everything's good to go. We click OK. Again, it brings us back to our return. Its refund has gone up. And then again, like I said, it's the 1040 is a representation. You can see here the $85 from the EIC is listed here. In case you wanted to go back in, you can go back in there and see what's going on there. Okay. So that is basically the line input. Again, it's the same for form input, but the form input is just forms. You don't see a representation of the 1040. Once you're done, everything's been added on to your forms use, which is listed here. You're good to go to the next spot, which is going to be the summary. So again, line input. So back on this one here, which is the most used. Like I said, if you're done filling everything in, the next spot of the flow is to make sure everything is correct. So we're going to click OK. This is going to bring us to our summary page, which is basically breaking down everything. You can go a display summary, a detailed summary, diagnostics. One of the things we focus on here is the validity checks. So the validity checks is this line 4 here. And you can see it's a red box, red little circle right now. So we're going to go ahead and click validity checks. And you'll see we find some errors here. And you can see some other errors on this side. So this is normally when you would call customer support so we can help out what's going on. We can go ahead and diagnose these errors, see what's going on. In this case, we can see here on the left side, it's pretty simple. It explains it really easy. W2 number 1, big company is an error. Error, the employee city is missing. So we can go ahead and double click that. It will take us to the W2 section. Double click that here. And we can see there's no city. So let's go ahead. Put that zip code there. Again, that gave me a actual city because 12345 was not a valid zip code. So once we do that, we click OK. We click OK again. And you can see that error is now gone. There's also a less error here as well. So there's another error here, the 8879, the pin. This is just saying, hey, whenever you see this error 8879, it's missing the pin. You haven't previewed that. We'll go into that a little bit later. You can see here that it's also telling us, hey, we have some errors. So I'll go ahead and fix these. And then these ones here are where tech support a little bit is more needed. You can see here, there's basically a bunch of words in text code in here that you can see. And it says line 212, position 35, but you're like, what is that? I have no idea. We look for keywords. We can see it's the state abbreviation code. And we can see that the value C is invalid. So we know that it's that C that we entered inside of our W2. So we'll go ahead and go into that W2. You can also enter forms if you double click them on over here on the blue. So I'm going to double click that, double click this here. We're going to fix this. We'll put an A there. That's going to go ahead and click OK again. And then we can go in validity check. Now we can see here it says no more errors. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. And we're like, okay, no more errors, but it's still red. What's going on? We click it and we still see this one here. This is again saying the 8879 has not been previewed or is missing the pin. So we'll go ahead and solve that now. That's going to be found under e-file. When you're ready to e-file, you need to have them sign the 8879. So it's located here. You can see here on the e-file screen, this is going to be the last step you take when you're done. Again, going with the flow, finish the program, and this is the last step. You have a couple of things here. First, you have your URL set up. So you want to have your URL correctly set up there. If you're doing a bank product, you'll go ahead and click the bank product application there. You'll go ahead and fill out the bank application, submit it, and then it's going to fill out the information here. For the error we're getting is saying the 8879 hasn't been previewed, basically. So what we're going to do is here you see the option for preview 8879 and print 8879. Okay. And you can also see that the A2A, which is what you're going to use to e-file to send out your return, is grayed out. So if I click on it, nothing's going to happen because it's grayed out. So the moment, and this also says no status. So the moment you click preview 8879, would you like to print all documents? You're going to click yes. I'm not going to click no, so I don't print them. So it's going to give you the 8879. You'll go ahead and get that signed up, printed up, and signed up, store it for your records. And you can see now that A2A e-file button is lit up blue. And this is switched over to transmit. So now it's ready to go. At this point, I can click A2A e-file, and it's going to submit the return. Okay, it's going to be this one here, A2A e-file. The transmit one, this is for the extension. This is to actually send the return itself. So we're going to go back into summary, and now we see that this little bubble here is green. This means that according to the software itself, the tax return has a high possibility of passing the IRS's schema, which will get accepted. Now, there are things, even though if it's green, will reject on the IRS side. Like I said, our program catches most of them, but we cannot verify socials or stuff like that. So the social is incorrect, the name is incorrect, or something's missing. The IRS will still reject that, saying, hey, your social is incorrect. And you're like, but it's green. And that's the reason why, because we don't have access to the IRS's database. We can't compare. So if everything is correct, if all the information is correct and everything that's missing, this return should get accepted because it's green. Okay. So again, moves down this way. When you got that validity check cleared out, you print the return. This is going to print the full return. In this case, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to click preview the return, which is going to create a PDF of it. And again, you can see here, it goes back to our billing. The default billing we use 150 for the 1040 because we have that in there. And it just basically does the return that you're going to hand your clients, the instructions, your letters, and everything there. Okay. So in case you want to do a form print, for example, if you're going to mail it out, you can always go to form print here. If you're doing a specific form, you can do the specific form here. For example, let's say I want the 1040 and I want the EIC and that's it. And that's all I want to give them. Then you get the 1040 and the EIC without anything else. If you're going to be sending it to the IRS mail, check all that is required. We'll check everything that the IRS needs to receive. And that's being used. It will generate the return. They will go ahead and mail that out. They don't want to see the bill or title page. You're going to also archive this to a PDF in case you want to archive it for your records, in case you're not doing paper archives anymore. We do have the state forms. You can see it, clicked on it, nothing happened. This little box shows up. The reason for that is because we haven't selected a state. So we have the state there, but there's nothing here. You can see California balance due 0. So the moment I click state input, it's going to go ahead and bring up the county of residence. So let's go ahead and say Orange County. And it's going to tell me, hey, under the federal basic information, you don't have anything. Do you want me to put Orange County on there? Click yes. Okay, we'll go ahead and answer these questions. Okay, we'll go ahead. Did you live in California? Yes. Okay, yes. Yes. Okay, so we'll see this. Okay, we'll give him his 4 years coverage. Okay, no coverage, have minimal coverage. Okay. Looks like my test data is corrupt. I'll get that looked into. That's just my data. Okay, so looks like my data is corrupt. So what happens when your data is corrupt or something's wrong and you're stuck on this screen here? You can see that I can't get out of this screen now. So if I can't get out of the screen, the best way to clear that up, and again, when you ever clicked in here, you went and saved everything, it's just to close the program down. You close it down. We're going to go ahead and relaunch it again. Okay, once we relaunch the program, recall, and we're going to go ahead and go in there. Now that issue that with California that is being worked on, that was reported in, so that should be fixed on the next patch. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back into our summary here. Okay, so we're back in our summary. Again, I wouldn't be able to show the state. We do have an issue with California that we are working on, but we do see validity here, and it says the state schema has not been entered. And again, we are working on that issue, so that will be resolved in the next patch, but it's back to being green here. In the beginning, when we start the year, states have not been approved yet, so we're releasing states as we get them. There are some issues sometimes that we do encounter, but we're really fast to work on that, so we should have that fixed sometime today, possibly. Yeah, because we did report that in yesterday afternoon. But that would be pretty much it on the flow. Like I said, you follow your flow. You go from top to bottom. You reach out. If you have TaxCom, you would do a create presentation. If you need to amend the return, this is where you do your amended. If you want to change the amount paid on the vouchers, you can click here. And right now there's no vouchers because he's getting a return, but in case you wanted to generate a voucher for $5,000, you can do that and that will generate the voucher for him. The billing information here is what I referred to the snapshot billing earlier. I told you how if you set everything in there in default bill, it will carry to all your clients. So you can see 150. If I set this to $200 for this client, it's going to be $200 for this client on the bill itself. However, it's not going to affect any other clients that are uh, called in the future or any of your prior clients that you've already done, because it's snapshot, means that this is only for this client. It's only going to affect this client itself. So you can do here a bunch of edits here. You want to charge $25 for each W-2, or if you want to restore it back to defaults, you can go ahead and select that and it'll go back to defaults. If you want to show that he's already paid his balance because he paid it on the spot, you can go 150 and it will go ahead and do his balance to it's gone. All right. And that will be it. So I will give it back over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Luis. I do have two questions, and I'm hoping
Okay.
that you can go over those. One is, can you show how to do the student's credit?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and see if that's already been released for this year. Okay, so forms and schedules. Education credit. So it's going to be forms and schedules 8863. And you would go ahead and put the information here. So for example, I want it to the junior, you can go ahead and enter his qualifying expenses here. Let's just say $5,000. And then you select what type of credit it's going to be, American Opportunity or lifetime credit. All right. And then once you do the credit, you do have to enter the 1098T for that. And you will put that information in here. And that will go ahead and generate the credit for you. So you have to go ahead and answer. So it gives you the credit based on
Thank you,
whatever they get on the
Luis.
1098T. Yeah.
And then one last one is to file an extension. What is the process? Is that something that you can show?
Yeah. So the file extension, there's two ways to doing it. The number one way is you can go into forms and schedules, and there is an automatic extension at 4868. You can go ahead and fill this out. Now, let's say, for example, if you do have a lot of clients and it's towards the end of the year and you want to do a batch extension, we can always do the batch extension towards batch e-file and transmit automatic extensions. So you can do here. And there's a little things that we have to do. So I wouldn't be able to show because I don't have data for 22, but you basically get your 22 data and your 23 data. This database, it compares both of them to see who's missing. And then whoever's missing, it will send out an extension for. And then at the end, you can print the report. And that's how you would do that.
Thank you, Luis. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. We really appreciate your time. We hope that you have learned a lot about the Wintax program, and we thank you for being loyal clients. Have a great rest of your day. Again, this recording will be sent in an email through Zoom, as well as will be able to be found on our tutorial videos webpage within the next couple of days. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.